The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates. 847 different species filled the curved seating areas, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had wings, others tentacles. But today they all shared one common goal. They wanted humanity gone. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin sat alone in the center circle, her human form looking small and fragile compared to the towering aliens around her. The Zephyrian delegate, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, spoke first. Its voice rang out like wind chimes in a storm. The human species has proven itself incompatible with galactic civilization, it announced. They wage war for sport. They compete in everything. They cannot accept peace. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The crystalline collective's representative, a living mountain of purple gems, added its voice. Humans watch violence for entertainment. They celebrate conflict. Their children play games of war. This is barbarism, more voices joined in. The ethereal communes, beings of thought and light, complained about human emotions. They feel too much, too strongly. Love, hate, anger, joy, and all in extreme measures. They bring chaos wherever they go. Chen listened to each accusation with a calm face. She had expected this day for years. Humanity had always been different from the other species in the galaxy. While others sought harmony and balance, humans pushed boundaries. While others followed rules, humans asked why the rules existed. The hegemony delegate, a massive creature with 4 arms and scaled skin, stood up. They expand too quickly, build too much, take too many risks. In 50 years, they have colonized more worlds than most species manage in 500. They ask too many questions, added the representative from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. They want to know how everything works. They take apart our technology just to understand it. They have no respect for the unknown. Chen finally stood up. The chamber fell silent as she activated her translator and spoke in clear, simple words. "You are afraid of us," she said. The silence stretched longer. Then the Zephyrian delegate responded, "We are not afraid. We are concerned. Humanity does not fit with our way of life." "You are afraid," Chen repeated, "because we do things you cannot do. Because we take risks you will not take. Because we grow while you stay the same." The ethereal representative's form flickered with annoyance. "This is exactly what we mean. Humans always think they are better than others. They have no humility." Chen smiled a small, sad smile. "We never said we were better. We just said we were different. But you cannot accept different." President Veltar, the council's leader, raised his tentacles for silence. His species had founded the council 3,000 years ago. They prized order above all else. "The vote will now commence," he announced. "All in favor of exiling humanity from galactic space?" One by one, the votes came in. The crystalline collective voted yes. The ethereal communes voted yes. The peaceful worlds voted yes. Even species that had traded with Earth for decades voted yes. Chen watched the vote counter climb. 831 species voted to exile humanity. 15 abstained, too afraid to take either side. Only one species voted against the exile, the small insect-like hive collective, who had always appreciated human industriousness. When the voting ended, President Veltar turned to Chen. "The decision is final. Humanity must leave all council space within one standard solar cycle. All treaties are void. All trade agreements are cancelled. All military cooperation ends immediately." Chen stood up slowly. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces watching her. Some looked satisfied. Others looked uncomfortable. A few even looked sad. "The representative from Earth accepts this decision," she said in a voice that carried clearly through the dome. "We formally give up our membership in the Galactic Council, starting right now." The chamber began to buzz with conversation, but Chen was not finished. "We will leave council space within one solar cycle as you have demanded," she continued. "Consider this our official notice that we are ending all treaties, trade agreements, and defense pacts with council members." She paused and smiled. It was not a sad smile anymore. It was something else entirely. "Thank you for making this choice easy for us." The buzzing stopped. Delegates looked at each other with confusion. What did she mean by that? Chen activated her wrist communicator. "This is Ambassador Chen to all human vessels and stations. Execute Protocol Omega. Authorization Chen 77 Alpha. Begin immediate withdrawal from all council space." She looked up at the watching aliens. "We have been planning for this day longer than you know. Operation Exodus begins now." President Veltar's tentacles writhed with sudden worry. "What is Protocol Omega?" "Goodbye," Chen said simply. She walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. As she reached the door, she turned back one more time. "You wanted us gone because we were too different, too aggressive, too unpredictable. You thought exiling us would solve your problem?" She smiled again, and this time several delegates actually shivered at the expression. "You have no idea what you just did." Chen walked out of the chamber and into the transport bay where her ship waited. As she climbed aboard, she could hear the chaos beginning behind her as delegates realized what they had really voted for. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to live without humanity. Her ship's communication system was already buzzing with reports from across the galaxy. Human colonies were powering down their transmitters. Trade stations were beginning evacuation procedures. Military bases were activating their self-destruct sequences. "Admiral Martinez to Ambassador Chen," came a voice over the comm. "All fleets report ready for Phase 1 withdrawal. Awaiting your orders." Chen settled into her captain's chair and looked out at the stars beyond the council station. Somewhere out there, beyond the galaxy's edge, lay humanity's future. A future they would build themselves without asking permission from anyone. "Begin the withdrawal," she ordered. "All units execute Exodus protocols. We are going home." But home was not Earth anymore. Home was wherever humanity chose to make it, and they had already chosen a place the galaxy had never seen. In the dark spaces between the stars where no council member had ever dared to go, the great ships began to move, carrying humanity away from the galaxy that had rejected them. But as they flew toward the unknown, Chen could not help but wonder if the council understood what they had just lost. They would find out soon enough. The age of humanity in galactic space was over. But the age of humanity in the universe had just begun. The galaxy expected humanity to beg. They expected protests, desperate appeals, maybe even some humans trying to stay behind by renouncing their citizenship. What they got instead was the most organized disappearing act in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Voss stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching holographic displays show the systematic withdrawal of human assets from across known space. Around her, officers coordinated the largest evacuation ever attempted. Every human ship, station, colony, and outpost was moving according to plans that had been prepared in secret for over a decade. Status report from Sector 7, called Lieutenant Commander Torres from his station. "The Centauri colonies have completed mineral extraction. Generation ships are loaded and ready for jump. Tau Ceti research stations report all data uploaded to quantum cores," added another officer. "Demolition charges are set for controlled destruction." Voss nodded. The galaxy would find empty shells where human installations once thrived, not destroyed out of spite but carefully dismantled. Humans never wasted resources, and they were not about to start now. "What about New Geneva?" she asked. Dr. Marcus Webb's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from humanity's largest off-world colony. Behind him, massive cargo haulers could be seen lifting off from the planet's surface in an endless stream. "We are taking everything," Webb reported. "Atmospheric processors, fusion reactors, medical equipment, even the modified soil bacteria we developed for the terraforming project. The colony will be completely stripped within 18 hours. Any volunteers to stay behind?" Voss asked, though she already knew the answer. Webb shook his head. "Not one. Every human wants to leave." We all knew this day might come. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on hundreds of worlds. Human traders closed their shops and loaded their inventory. Human researchers backed up their data and destroyed their laboratories. Human diplomats packed their files and canceled their meetings. The speed of it all caught the aliens completely off guard. They had expected humans to plead for more time, to argue about logistics, to create delays and complications. Instead, human space emptied like water flowing out of a broken dam. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, Zephyrian merchant Wind Whisper watched in growing panic as the human trading post shut down. The humans had been the main suppliers of rare earth elements to this sector for 30 years. "Wait," Wind Whisper called to the human supervisor. "What about our contract?" "We have orders to fill." The human, a middle-aged woman named Captain Rodriguez, looked up from her loading checklist. Contract was with the Galactic Council member nation of Earth. We are no longer council members. Contract is void. But we need those shipments, Wind Whisper protested. Our people depend on them. Rodriguez shrugged. You voted us out. Find another supplier. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. The Crystalline Collective discovered that humans had been their only source of organic compounds needed for their reproduction cycles. The Peaceful Worlds found that human agricultural techniques had been feeding half their population. The ethereal communes realized that human technology had been maintaining their meditation networks for decades. But the humans just kept leaving, loading ship after ship with everything they had built in galactic space. President Veltar called an emergency session of the Council just 3 days after the vote. The chamber was in chaos as delegates reported the same thing from across their territories. The humans are taking everything, reported the hegemony representative. Our joint mining operations are shutting down. They are removing equipment we thought belonged to us. Check your contracts, advised the representative from the Hive Collective, the only species that had voted against Exile. Humans always read the fine print. If they are taking it, they own it. The truth was even worse than the Council feared. In 50 years of galactic membership, humans had not just traded with other species. They had become the backbone of galactic infrastructure. Human ships carried cargo between hostile species who refused to deal with each other directly. Human engineers maintained technology that other species considered too dangerous or complicated. Human soldiers kept peace in disputed areas because they were the only species trusted by all sides to be fair. Now all of that was disappearing. Our shipping lanes are under attack, reported the Avian Coalition. Pirates are raiding our vessels. The human patrol fleets that used to protect this sector have withdrawn. The terrorist group on Kepler 442 has resumed bombing campaigns, added the Mollusk Federation. Human peacekeepers were the only ones keeping them contained. President Veltar's tentacles writhed with growing anxiety. How long until human withdrawal is complete? Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She was now wearing a military uniform instead of diplomatic robes, and her expression was all business. Honored council members, she said formally, this is Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the Terran Colonial Fleet. I am transmitting to inform you that human withdrawal from galactic space is proceeding on schedule. All human personnel and assets will be removed within the mandated time frame. Admiral, President Veltar said carefully, perhaps we could discuss transition periods for essential services. Some adjustments to the timeline. Chen's expression did not change. The vote was final. The timeline is final. We are not interested in negotiations. But surely some humans would prefer to remain, pressed the ethereal representative. We could offer individual citizenship to humans who wish to stay. No human wishes to stay, Chen replied flatly. We are leaving. All of us. Forever. The transmission ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. What they did not know was that humanity's withdrawal was only the beginning. As human ships gathered at the galaxy's edge, they were joined by others. Ships belonging to species that had never been invited to join the Council, refugees from worlds the Council had written off as lost, AI constructs that had achieved sentience but were denied recognition, pirates and rebels and outcasts from a dozen different civilizations. The humans had sent secret messages to every group the galaxy had rejected or forgotten. The message was simple: come with us. Help us build something better, and they came. In small groups at first, then in larger numbers as word spread. Species that had been turned away from the Council for being too primitive or too dangerous. Artificial intelligences that had been denied rights. Hybrid species that did not fit into the Council's neat categories. Admiral Voss watched the growing fleet from her bridge. Thousands of ships now moved together toward the galaxy's rim, carrying not just humanity but everyone the galaxy had deemed unworthy of membership. Where are we going? Asked Lieutenant Commander Torres. Voss smiled. Somewhere the Council has never been. Somewhere they would never think to look. Somewhere we can build exactly what we want without asking permission from anyone. The great fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity and its new allies away from the galaxy that had rejected them. Behind them, they left empty stations, abandoned colonies, and a growing crisis as the Council slowly realized what they had lost. The galaxy would learn to function without human help. But it would take time, and not everyone would survive the transition. Humanity was gone. But they had not gone quietly, and they had not gone alone. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy began to understand what they had really voted away. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades collapsed overnight. The human merchant fleet had been the connecting tissue of galactic commerce, carrying goods between species that refused to deal with each other directly. Without them, old grudges and territorial disputes made simple trade nearly impossible. President Zalthara of the Avian Coalition stood before the council chamber, his feathered crest drooping with exhaustion. His species had been one of the strongest supporters of human exile. Now he looked like he had not slept in weeks. Our shipping lanes are under constant attack, he reported. Pirate fleets have moved into the sectors that human patrols used to protect. We have lost 17 cargo vessels in the past month alone. Murmurs of similar problems rippled through the chamber. The crystalline collective had lost their main supply of organic compounds. The peaceful worlds were experiencing food shortages. The ethereal communes found their meditation networks failing without human-maintained technology. Where are the replacement patrol fleets? Demanded the hegemony representative. Surely other species can take over these duties. President Veltar's tentacles drooped as he consulted his reports. The Zephyrians consider patrol work beneath their spiritual calling. The Mechanical Union calculates that policing organic crime is inefficient. The Mollusk Federation lacks the ship designs for long-range patrol. The truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Humanity had not just been another member species. They had been the glue that held galactic civilization together, taking on all the dirty, dangerous, thankless jobs that other species considered beneath them. But the immediate problems were just the beginning. Deep space monitoring stations along the galaxy's rim began reporting strange readings. Massive energy signatures appearing and disappearing beyond the galactic edge. Industrial activity on a scale that defied explanation. Ships of unknown design moving in formations too large to count. Commander Thex of the Outer Rim Defense Force brought the first solid evidence to the Council. His patrol ship had been conducting routine sweeps when his sensors detected something impossible. The energy readings suggest construction activity, he reported to the assembled delegates. But the scale is beyond anything we have ever seen. Whatever is being built out there, it is larger than our biggest space stations. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Asked the ethereal representative hopefully. Thex shook his head. The patterns are too regular, too organized. Someone is building something massive in the void between galaxies. The question is who? Everyone in the chamber was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. The humans had vanished beyond the galactic rim 6 months ago. If they were responsible for the energy readings, it meant they were not just hiding in exile. They were building something. The answer came when a single ship appeared at the galaxy's edge. It was unlike anything in Council records. Sleek where Council ships were bulky. Elegant where Council designs were practical. It moved through space, with a grace that seemed to ignore the normal rules of physics. The ship broadcast a message on all frequencies in perfect galactic standard. The voice was human, female, and completely confident. This is Captain Elizabeth Kane of the Human Colonial Fleet. We are broadcasting to inform the galaxy that the Terran Colonial Union formally claims all space beyond this galaxy's edge as sovereign territory. Any vessel approaching our borders will be met with appropriate response. The message repeated 3 times. Then the ship simply vanished. Not jumped to hyperspace, not cloaked. It was there one moment and gone the next, as if it had never existed. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions and accusations at each other. How had humans developed such advanced technology so quickly? What was the Terran Colonial Union? How many humans were out there? But the most important question was asked by the Hive Collective representative, the only species that had voted against human exile. What did they mean by appropriate response? The answer came 2 weeks later when a hegemony survey expedition decided to test humanity's new borders. 3 heavy cruisers crossed into the space that Captain Kane had claimed, expecting to find scattered human settlements that could be easily intimidated. Instead, they found Captain Rodriguez waiting for them in a ship that should not have been able to exist. Where hegemony vessels were massive and intimidating, her ship was sleek and predatory. It moved like a living thing, responding to her commands faster than thought itself. Hegemony vessels, you have entered Terran Colonial Union space without permission, Rodriguez transmitted. Reverse course immediately. The Hegemony commander, a veteran of dozens of battles, laughed at the single human ship facing his 3 cruisers. One ship against 3? Human, you are either very brave or very stupid. I prefer to think of it as very prepared, Rodriguez replied. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Rodriguez's ship moved like nothing the Hegemony had ever seen. It phased through their shields as if they were not there. It disabled their weapons without destroying their ships. It captured their crews without killing anyone. The entire encounter lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, all 3 Hegemony cruisers were drifting in space, completely powerless but undamaged. Their crews were unconscious but unharmed. Rodriguez's ship was untouched. Her final transmission to the Hegemony was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Your crews will be returned unharmed to the galactic border. Your ships will be returned disabled. This is your only warning. Cross our borders again and we will respond differently. The disabled cruisers were found drifting at the galaxy's edge 3 days later. The crews had no memory of what happened after they were captured. The ship's computers had been completely wiped. Even their weapon systems had been permanently disabled by some technology that left no trace of how it worked. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer the species that had been voted out of the Council 6 months ago. They had become something else entirely. Reports began filtering in from across the galaxy. Human ships were patrolling the rim, turning away any vessel that approached uninvited. They did not attack, but they made it very clear that the space beyond the galaxy was no longer open to Council members. More disturbing were the reports from Council intelligence services. Several member species had been secretly sending diplomatic missions toward the rim, hoping to establish contact with this new Terran colonial union. These missions never returned, but their crews were eventually found at various locations throughout Council space, with no memory of their journeys and no explanation of how they had gotten there. The humans were not hiding anymore. They were guarding something and they were very good at it. President Veltar called another emergency session of the Council. As delegates filed into the chamber, many of them looked haunted. The galaxy they had known for thousands of years was changing, and not in ways they could control or understand. We need to discuss the human situation, Veltar announced to the assembly. It appears that our former colleagues have become something more than we anticipated. The understatement of the millennium, thought many of the delegates. But none of them were ready to admit out loud that exiling humanity might have been the biggest mistake in galactic history. Outside the chamber's crystal windows, they could see ships preparing for departure. Not warships or exploration vessels, but transport ships filled with entire populations. More and more species were choosing to leave Council space entirely, seeking something better beyond the rim. They were going to join the humans, and none of them were coming back. Dr. Kenji Nakamura had always believed that knowledge belonged to everyone. It was a human philosophy that had gotten him in trouble with the Council more than once during his years at the Lunar Research Institute. Now, 18 months after humanity's exile, he was about to break the biggest rule of all. Nakamura sat in his laboratory aboard Haven Station, looking at the data packet he was preparing to transmit. The packet contained construction images, technical specifications, and progress reports that would show the galaxy exactly what humanity had accomplished in their exile. Sending it would violate every term of the exile agreement, but Kenji had never been one to follow rules that made no sense. His old colleague, the crystalline entity known as harmonic resonance, deserved to know the truth. They had worked together for decades on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. If anyone could appreciate what humanity had built, it would be resonance. Kenji activated the quantum transmitter and sent the packet into the void. Within hours, it would reach the galaxy's edge and then jump across space to Resonance's laboratory on Nexus Prime. The consequences for him personally did not matter. The truth was more important than his safety. The packet contained images that would have been impossible to believe 6 months earlier. In just 18 months, humanity had constructed 7 massive orbital habitats, each one larger than the Council's capital station. They had industrialized entire asteroid fields and built shipyards that dwarfed anything in galactic space. But the most important images showed something the galaxy had never expected. Humanity was not alone. The construction photos revealed beings the Council had never seen working alongside humans. Refugees from dying worlds that the Council had written off as lost causes. Outcasts from isolationist species that refused galactic contact. Artificial intelligences that had achieved sentience but been denied recognition by organic governments. Humanity's exile had become a beacon for every being the galaxy had rejected or forgotten. They came in small groups at first, drawn by messages humanity had sent to the darkest corners of space. The message was always the same: we will accept you as you are. Help us build something better. Admiral Chen Wei-Lin, now promoted from her diplomatic role to military command, stood in the observation deck of Haven Station, watching the latest group of refugees arrive. These were survivors from the Kepler system, where a civil war had been raging for decades while the Council debated whether to intervene. "How many this time?" asked Captain Martinez, her aide. 43,000, Chen replied. "Mostly civilians, but some military personnel and their families. They have information about Council military capabilities that could be useful." Martinez nodded. "The Integration Committee will process them within the week. Standard offer of citizenship, housing assignments, job placement. They will fit in well here." Chen smiled as she watched the refugee ships dock with the station's massive ports. Haven Station was humanity's greatest achievement, but it was no longer exclusively human. The rotating habitats housed dozens of species that had chosen exile over submission to the Council's rigid hierarchies. "Any word from the construction teams?" Chen asked. "Phase 7 is ahead of schedule," Martinez reported. "The shipyards are producing vessels at a rate that exceeds our most optimistic projections. The new Alliance members are contributing technologies we never imagined possible." That was the real secret of humanity's transformation. They had not just spent 18 months building infrastructure. They had spent 18 months learning from every species that joined them, combining technologies and ideas in ways the Council had never attempted. The Artificial Intelligence Collective had contributed quantum computing advances that made human computers look like stone tools. The refugee engineers from the Andromeda expedition had brought dimensional manipulation technology. The outcast scientists from a dozen different species had shared research that their home governments had banned as too dangerous. Together, they had created something unprecedented, a truly cooperative civilization where every species contributed their best abilities and received equal representation in return. "What about our newest arrivals?" Chen asked, referring to a group that had arrived just days earlier. Martinez consulted his tablet. "The Sentient Machine Collective is adapting well. Their manufacturing capabilities have increased our production efficiency by 30%. The genetic engineers from the failed colonies have already begun work on improving our terraforming techniques." Chen nodded, but her attention was drawn to something else visible through the observation window. In the distance, she could see the latest addition to humanity's growing fleet. Ships that incorporated technology from all their Alliance members. These were not the crude, functional vessels that had carried humanity into exile. They were works of art that happened to be the most advanced spacecraft ever constructed. Hull designs that seemed to flow like water, propulsion systems that bent space itself around them, weapons that could disable enemy vessels without destroying them. Most impressive were the defensive systems. The new ships could become invisible to sensors, phase through solid matter, or simply step outside normal spacetime when threatened. They were not just superior to Council technology. They were so far beyond it that comparison was meaningless. "The Council still has no idea what we have become," Chen mused. "Should we tell them?" Martinez asked. Chen considered the question. The Terran Colonial Union now controlled resources and technology that could easily conquer the galaxy if they chose to. Their population had grown from humanity's original 47 billion to over 200 billion, as refugee species joined them. Their industrial capacity exceeded the entire Council's output, but conquest was not what they wanted. "Not yet," Chen decided. "Let them continue to think we are just hiding in exile. The longer they remain ignorant, the more time we have to perfect our society." She turned away from the window and walked toward the command center. Haven Station was impressive, but it was only the beginning. Beyond the station, construction crews were working on projects that would reshape the very nature of space travel and communication. The Dimensional Research Facility was developing methods to create permanent portals between distant locations, making travel across the galaxy instantaneous. The Temporal Studies Division was investigating ways to accelerate technological development by accessing knowledge from potential futures. The Consciousness Transfer Laboratory was working on methods to preserve the minds of dying species, giving them new forms of existence. These were projects the Council would have banned as too dangerous or too unethical. But the Terran Colonial Union had no such limitations. They were free to pursue any research that served the greater good of all member species. "Admiral," came a voice from the communication station. "We are receiving a priority message from our border patrols. A Council ship has been detected attempting to approach our territory." Chen walked to the communications console. "What kind of ship?" "Appears to be a diplomatic vessel from the Avian Coalition. They are broadcasting a request for peaceful contact." Chen smiled. It was beginning. The galaxy was finally starting to realize that the Terran Colonial Union might be worth talking to, despite the exile, but they would do so on humanity's terms, not the Council's. "Send a standard response," she ordered. "All contact with the Terran Colonial Union must go through official diplomatic channels. If they want to talk, they can submit a formal request and wait for our response." It was a complete reversal of the old relationship. Once humanity had begged for acceptance from the galactic community. Now the galaxy was beginning to beg for acceptance from humanity. The difference was that humanity actually intended to say yes, eventually. But first, the galaxy needed to learn what it meant to live without the very thing they had voted to exile. Only when they truly understood what they had lost would they be ready to accept what humanity had become. The hegemony made their second mistake exactly 2 years after humanity's exile. They had learned nothing from their first encounter with human border patrol. 3 hegemony dreadnoughts, the largest warships in their fleet, crossed into Terran Colonial Union space with orders to establish a military base. General Kravak, the hegemony's most decorated commander, had convinced his government that the humans were bluffing about their defensive capabilities. One lucky victory does not make them invincible, he had argued before the Hegemony War Council. They are still just humans. We have ships, we have numbers, we have experience. Captain Rodriguez was waiting for them in the UES Defiance, a vessel that looked more like a living creature than a machine. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Energy patterns ran along its surface like veins of light. "Hegemony vessels, you are in violation of Terran Colonial Union space," Rodriguez transmitted. "You have 60 seconds to reverse course." General Kravak laughed as he studied the single ship facing his massive fleet. Each of his dreadnoughts carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The human vessel was barely larger than one of his escort fighters. "Human Captain, I am General Kravak of the Hegemony 5th Fleet. You will stand down immediately and prepare to be boarded. Your government will answer for the illegal occupation of galactic territory." 50 seconds, Rodriguez replied calmly. Kravak activated his weapon systems. All 3 dreadnoughts targeted the human ship with enough concentrated fire to vaporize a space station. "You have chosen poorly, human." 10 seconds, Rodriguez said. Her voice held no fear, no anger, no emotion at all, just professional courtesy. "Fire," Kravak ordered. What happened next would be studied by military tacticians for generations, though they would never understand how it was possible. The Defiance simply was not there when the weapons fired. It had not moved, had not jumped to hyperspace, had not activated any kind of cloaking device. It existed in the same location but somehow occupied a different phase of reality. The hegemony weapons passed through empty space, striking nothing. Then the Defiance reappeared directly between the 3 dreadnoughts, and everything changed. Beams of energy emerged from the human ship, but they were unlike any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. They passed through the hegemony shields as if the shields did not exist, then precisely targeted specific systems on each dreadnought. Navigation systems failed. Weapons powered down. Life support switched to emergency backup. Communications went dead. In less than 30 seconds, the most powerful warships in the hegemony fleet were reduced to drifting hulks, but the crews were unharmed. Every life sign remained strong and stable. The humans had disabled 3 dreadnoughts without killing a single being. General Kravak found himself staring at a human face on his emergency screen. Rodriguez looked calm, almost bored. General Kravak, your vessels are disabled but your crews are safe. You will be escorted to the galactic border and released. Your ships will be returned to hegemony space in the same condition, minus their ability to threaten anyone. How? Kravak whispered. How is this possible? Rodriguez smiled. It was not a cruel expression, just confident. You voted us out when you thought you did not need us. Did you really think we would spend 2 years hiding in a corner, feeling sorry for ourselves? Kravak's screen went dark. When he woke up 3 days later, he was in a medical facility on the hegemony homeworld with no memory of how he had gotten there. His 3 dreadnoughts were in orbit above him, completely repaired except for their weapon systems, which had been permanently fused into scrap metal. The message was broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Humanity was not hiding anymore. They had become something the Council had never imagined possible. Emergency sessions were called on dozens of worlds as governments tried to understand what they were facing. The humans were not conquering territory or making demands. They were simply protecting their borders with technology that made the galaxy's most advanced weapons look like primitive tools. But more disturbing were the reports from across Council space. Entire populations were disappearing overnight. Not captured or conquered, but voluntarily abandoning their homeworlds to seek passage beyond the galactic rim. The refugees came from every species and social class. Scientists who were tired of bureaucratic limitations on their research. Artists who wanted freedom to create without censorship. Soldiers who were exhausted by endless wars between Council members. Ordinary citizens who had heard rumors of a place where everyone was equal regardless of their species or origin. They gathered at the galaxy's edge in massive refugee fleets, requesting permission to join the Terran Colonial Union. And permission was always granted. President Veltar called the most important council session in galactic history. As delegates filed into the crystal chamber, many of them looked like beings attending their own funeral. The galaxy they had ruled for thousands of years was crumbling around them. We must address the human situation, Veltar announced to the assembly. Our intelligence services estimate that over 50 billion beings have defected to the Terran Colonial Union in the past 6 months. Entire star systems are requesting permission to leave council space. The ethereal representative flickered with agitation. How is this possible? We offered them everything civilization could provide. Order, peace, stability, prosperity. But not freedom, said a new voice. Every head in the chamber turned toward the main display screen where a familiar face had appeared. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin looked older, more confident and completely unburdened by the need for council approval. Hello, former colleagues, she said with a smile that held no warmth. We have been monitoring your recent difficulties with great interest. It seems Exile has been harder on you than on us. President Veltar rose from his chair, his tentacles writhing with barely controlled desperation. Ambassador Chen, the Council is prepared to discuss terms for readmission to galactic society. No. The single word echoed through the chamber like a death sentence. You voted us out when you thought you did not need us, Chen continued. You do not get to vote us back in when you discover you were wrong. The age of the Galactic Council is ending. The question is not whether humanity will return to galactic space. She paused, and her smile became something that made several delegates shiver. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to join us in building something better. What are you offering? Asked the Hive Collective representative, the only species that had originally voted against Exile. True equality between species, Chen replied. Protection for the powerless instead of rule by the strongest. Freedom to grow and explore and become more than you ever thought possible. A voice for everyone instead of control by the few. And if we refuse? Demanded the hegemony representative. Chen shrugged. Then you continue as you are, fighting your little wars, maintaining your rigid hierarchies, slowly dying as the galaxy moves beyond your ability to control it. We will not conquer you. We do not need to. She gestured toward something off-screen. We are transmitting coordinates for species that wish to join the Terran Colonial Union. Individual worlds, not governments. Individual beings, not representatives. Come as you are, and discover what the galaxy looks like when everyone has a voice. You cannot just steal our populations, protested the Crystalline Collective. We are not stealing anyone, Chen replied. We are offering them a choice. Something you never did. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Through the crystal windows, they could already see ships changing course. Not toward the chamber, not toward the Council's great capital stations, but toward the coordinates Chen had provided. Ships belonging to member species, carrying beings who had made their choice. They were going to join humanity, and none of them were coming back. President Veltar looked around the chamber at the empty seats where delegates should have been sitting. Half the council members had already left to return to their homeworlds, hoping to prevent mass defections. The other half sat in stunned silence, watching their civilization collapse around them. Outside, the exodus had already begun. The galaxy was finally ready to discover what they had lost when they voted humanity into exile, but it was too late to take the vote back. Humanity had found something better than membership in the Galactic Council. They had found the future,